Hello there, it's Mr. West again. So, here we go. I'd like to show you how to delete certain parts of an image by using the selection tool a little bit like this. So I'll just do that again for you. What I've done here is I've clicked on the relevant layer that I wanted. I've used my selection tool, okay, which is this marquee selection, rectangular marquee tool, and then I've chosen a part of the image that I want. If I wanted to take that chunk there, I could click on it and I press delete. It can then chunk out and I can start deleting things. And you can start to see how you can start to get very creative with the way that you want to cut things out. And obviously I've probably gone a bit too far, so I go back to my history and I can go onto my history options and I can click back to there. Okay, so in seriousness, what we then want to do is delete off, let's say, half of the image to crop. You can then click delete, and once you've deleted it, you can then click off the screen to get rid of those little ant markers. Now, with the whale shark, as you can see here, it's a smart object. Now that means that it's preserved somewhere else. What you need to do to change that into an editable thing in Photoshop, you can rasterize the layer. Okay, that just makes it a simple rasterized layer, and you can then do the same. You can choose parts that you want to select, delete, to then crop things in and out. So that's quite a helpful tool to cut things out. Okay, and just finally, I wanted to show you now probably the most effective thing about Photoshop is the way that you can actually edit photos and make them look more interesting. So I've zoomed in on the right navigator here. The adjustment layers on the right hand here allow you to adjust different things such as the brightness and contrast. Okay, at the moment, the reason why that's not applying is because it's got to be above that layer. So Photoshop works in a sort of cascading style. Whatever's above it will apply below. Okay, so these adjustment layers on the right hand side in this little toolbox here can be accessed and changed using these different things. So you can see the contrast changing slightly. Contrast goes up, brightness goes up or down. Okay, so we don't want to overexpose it. Okay, we can then go back and we could add in another thing such as the vibrance. We can make the saturation, which will bring out more colors, or we can make it almost black and white. Okay, we don't want to overdo it. Vibrance, again, subtle changes there. Finally, another helpful one is you can go back and click on something like photo filter to add in a sort of a color tone to it, which would be quite interesting. And you can start to see how through just a bit of color tones you start to get quite a stylized image. Okay. Another really helpful one is the levels. Now levels work well if your image is either under or overexposed. It uses this histogram here whereby you can choose and click on these different points to change the amount of exposure. Okay, that's just some very basic photo editing that you can do in Photoshop using these adjustment layers. You can add an adjustment layer by going layer, new adjustment layer, and you can do the same there. This toolbox on the right here is easier than doing this method here. So hopefully that's helpful. So you should now have some sort of image with a few different more stylized effects there on these adjustment layers. These adjustment layers can then be turned on and off, which is quite useful by clicking on the little eye. So you don't have to have them there. You don't even have to have that image or anything. You can go back to basics once again. This is why the layers on the right hand side are so helpful.